listening is my favorite thing. It's I just think if everybody just got listened to, everybody would calm down and behave themselves, and the world would be a much more peaceful place. So I want to talk to you today about a kind of listening that's just so effortless, but so effective and so productive. And it has a ripple effect that goes on and on and on. It raises the quality of every interaction you'll ever have. It inspires trust. It brings out the best in everyone. And it can feel like you're not doing anything. It's not something you work at. It's an inborn capability that you may or may not have known you have. But it is the world's greatest app, as far as I'm concerned. So I hope we're just going to have fun today, and that we're going to do some collaborative teaching. The most powerful way to teach deep listening is to listen. You don't really have to talk about it too much. You can just listen. So I want to thank some folks that have helped me get to be obsessed about listening. One person being Sandra Crott, who has been around the principles for a long, long time, and she's a wonderful woman. And she did a workshop that included talking about listening probably about 40 years ago, and it just stuck with me. And I want to thank her for pointing me in that direction. There are other folks in the world that value it just as much as I do, and you probably already do. But one in particular is a woman from the UK. Her name is Karen Armstrong. And she is if you don't know her, she is a theologian, and she's just wonderful. She's written some wonderful books. And she talks about there being steps to a compassionate life that includes listening. And she says, number one, set aside the clever, educated, opinionated self. Open yourself to trying on others' views for size. Come from your true self. Don't keep score. Keep yourself from fear of being changed or influenced or affected. That's just really good advice. So let's talk a little bit about some of the ways that people listen. I'm going to put the next slide on. So, high impact, low effort listening, which is where we're going to end up today. Paying attention. We'll talk about times that's a good idea and times not so much. Evaluating, I'm going to have a lot to say about that. And just simple distracted listening. Next one. Distracted listening. It's kind of obvious. You might be distracted right now and can't actually hear me say that because you're distracted. You're thinking about something else, like what's for lunch, or why doesn't that woman comb her hair, or whatever. You may be up in your head having a nice time with something else. My favorite example for me is when I'm in my car and somebody on the radio says they're going to play such and such a tune, and I think, oh, great, I love that tune. 3-4 minutes later, they say they have played that tune. I missed the whole thing. I got up in my head about something or other, and I made myself deaf to music. Now, that's amazing that you can make soundless noise in your head that drowns out actual sound. But take my word for it, it's possible. I do that regularly, not on purpose, just out of habit. So the next one is evaluating. So this is usually how we're taught to listen. We're listening to people and we're thinking, okay, do I agree with that or disagree? Is that true or not so much? Or we think of examples of what they're talking about. Or we think of applications. I wonder how that would work with such and such. Or maybe we're criticizing them, we're judging them. Or maybe we're diagnosing them. That's always handy. And I got taught to listen like that in my education. Just listen for what's wrong with them and then find a name for them. And that's called the diagnosis. I'm embarrassed I ever did that. Or maybe you're listening to somebody talk about a problem and you get really busy thinking about the solution, what you're going to tell them as soon as they shut up. Or maybe they say something and you get a little defensive about that and you start making up what you're going to do in defense of yourself, what you're going to say in defense of yourself. Or maybe you make assumptions. That's the first thing I noticed after I took this class from Sandy, that I noticed that I assumed a lot of things. Like if somebody would use a certain phrase, I would just automatically assume they meant the same by that phrase as I would have meant by it. Or they use a certain word, and I would think, oh, well, I didn't even think it, I just assumed they meant the same thing as I would. As I got better and better at listening and hearing myself assume, I would check out my assumptions. I would say, could you say what you mean by that phrase? And they would say more, and I didn't mean anything near what I would have meant by it. So I was missing all kinds of information that it would have helped me understand them more, because I was assuming and assuming and assuming. Lots of times people will be talking to us and we'll get reminded of something and we'll start thinking about that. Or we'll think about how we can fix this person. I know none of you ever do that, ever. Never thought, okay, this person is really screwed up. I've got to fix them. I have done that, but I know it's rare. So we think we're listening when we're doing all that. But what we're actually doing is listening to our own mental activity about what somebody else is saying. But we're not listening to them. Does that make sense? Very popular to have a real busy evaluating head when you're listening to someone else. Next one. Paying attention. Usually when we go to school, when we're real young, one of the first admonishments we hear from a teacher is, now so-and-so, pay attention. And usually that means listen to what the teacher is saying, memorize it, and be able to repeat it when it's test time. That's how I went to school. Most of the school I went to was like that I had to take in a bunch of information and then prove that I knew it. I remember a conversation I had with my granddaughter once. She was probably, I don't know, 15 or so, I guess. And I was going to go to Africa again. And I asked her if she knew who Nelson Mandela was. And she said, no. And inside I went, you're kidding, right? I didn't say that though. But I said, well, didn't you do a project on South Africa last year? And she said, yeah. And I said, I remember you had posters and all kinds of stuff, and you had a study group. And I remember, if I remember right, you got a really good grade on that. And she said, yeah, and she was proud of that. And I said, didn't the name Nelson Mandela come up at all? And she said, oh yeah, that sounds familiar. Was he in jail or something? And so she spent all that time studying South Africa and barely remembered anything. That's how I went to school too. So there are times when bearing down and memorizing something is useful. I live not too far away from a place called the Mall of America. It's apparently one of the largest shopping centers in the world. I never go out there unless somebody from town comes to town and wants to visit it. But there are huge parking ramps. And when I go out there, I make sure I write down where I parked. Otherwise, I'd never find my car again. And I have to live in that parking ramp for the rest of my life. But so writing down things so you won't forget them, it helps. Maybe that you go see the doctor and he gives you some advice and so forth. You might want to write it down. If you're like me, you'd forget it by the time you got home. But as a way of life and as a way of deepening relationships, this doesn't have a whole lot going for it. Next one. High impact, low effort listening. Now that's a whole different ballgame. It's kind of like how you listen to music, if you like music, that you just kind of let it come in and you experience it. You don't spend a lot of time analyzing it or processing it, or unless you're a music student, you probably aren't trying to think of what key it's in or what it went in, what into composing it or any of that. You're just letting it in. That's where we do what Karen Armstrong calls about trying it on for size. We just listen to what people are trying to get across to us without any editorial comment. It's kind of like listening until you can feel this kind of, I call it this golden cord between your heart and someone else. You can hear what's behind their words. You can hear what they want you to know. And sometimes it may not have anything to do with what they're saying. They just are letting you in on them. Some other people that I want to thank are small children who, after trying and trying and trying to get a parent or someone else's attention, will crawl up on their lap and take a hold of their head until the person shows up. And they know when you've shown up. And they know when you haven't. That makes sense? They could say, mommy, 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 mommy. And you could say, what? And they know until they hold their head and you actually show up. Then you're present. And they may by that time have forgotten what they wanted to tell you. So they start making up something. They just wanted to be heard. They wanted to be seen. Who doesn't, huh? Who doesn't? So you ready for some fun? Say yes. So we're going to practice. And Magical Azul is going to break us up into groups of 2, into little chat rooms, right? And I'm going to have you practice listening to one another. And this is the way we'll do it. We'll take 3 or 4 minutes apiece. And first you'll be a talker. And you will tell your partner, let's see, okay, I'm going to have you talk about one of your favorite books. Okay. So you will tell your partner what your favorite book is and why you like it and all that. And your partner is just going to listen. They're not going to say a word. They're just going to listen. But they're going to notice how they're listening. And then after 3 or 4 minutes, you change places. You become the listener or you become the talker. You can keep your own time about that. Or Azul could do it. You want to do it, Azul? Okay.
Yeah, I will let you know so you can talk freely.
Okay. So let me say it again. You're going to talk about your favorite book and you're going to take turns listening. Okay? Have a good time. We'll see you in a few minutes. When you were listening, now's the time that you help me teach. When you were listening, anybody can answer this. What did you notice? Go ahead.
Yeah, I noticed with Vicky that there were a couple of times when she looked at me when she was describing stuff where I felt I had to at least nod some sort.
So she'd know you hadn't fallen asleep or something.
Yeah, so she knew I wasn't just looking at the light fitting or something,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah.
In that way, the exercise is a little unnatural because you're used to people responding in some way or other. But what did you notice about your listening?
I noticed it was quite neutral. But when she got into the description of the book, because I kind of wanted to remember what she'd said, then I took one of the names that she mentioned and I anglicized it so that I would remember it. And then I realized that that's what I was doing. So then I just kind of dropped back into my neutral space again.
Oh, good catch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you probably realized we weren't going to have a test on content. Great.
I was hoping we wouldn't know.
Try a little memorizing just in case. Anybody else? What did you notice?
I'll share Mavis if I can. Hi, I'm Wendy. So I spoke to Dave Robinson, and I've met Dave before, but in person, but briefly. But so first of all, just took a little bit of settling and had to remind myself, settle, you know, be here, be here. And I listened, and then the more I So I noticed, okay, an odd thought come in. Let's just brush that aside, because so that I can listen to him. And the more Dave spoke, it was like I was. It was like he was letting me in, and I was really seeing this person differently. It was quite nice, so that I could feel myself, relaxing more, I guess. Yeah.
Oh,
So
nice.
it was lovely. It was warm. I think he felt that too.
Yeah. Isn't that nice? Yeah, there's no downside to this. None. Anybody else? I love these stories.
Yeah, I can share. So I was with Derek, and I noticed how I was getting fascinated by what he was talking about, and how there was at times there was like this agreement. So I was like, oh yeah, I could notice the agreement, and I could also notice the things that were particularly interesting. My curiosity was encouraging my mind to go off on that thread. So yeah, I just noticed that the because I was interested in what he was talking about, how that set my mind
Yeah.
off in different directions.
I'm glad you brought that up, because as we go further, it isn't that you won't ask questions. It isn't that. It's just that you will only ask questions that deepen the understanding. They won't take you off yonder someplace that has nothing to do with what the person is trying to. You'll, if you spend any amount of time with me, you would hear me say, would you say more about that? Or what do you mean by that? Or it furthers the depth of the conversation. So what you're doing in this exercise isn't like the whole picture, but it's mostly meant to get you acquainted with noticing how you listen. Thank you for that. Good catch. Who's next?
Geek.
Hey.
Hi Mavis, it's Barry. It's not actually Kick. That's the name of the company's iPad.
Sorry.
Yeah, I did. I noticed myself judging at the beginning of my listening to Emma. The book that she mentioned, The Hobbit, is something that I hadn't read, and I kind of had a judgment on. And I did notice myself going into that judgment, but I was glad I did notice it. So I came away from it, got present, and yeah, it was really lovely. And I think I kind of changed my view on the Hobbit as well, because she was very, very passionate and enthusiastic, and she painted pictures with what she shared, which was really nice.
Great. Another good catch. That's all you have to do is notice. You guys are quick. Who's next?
Yeah, hi Mavis. For me, I was paired with John, and also for some reason when he started talking, because it was a listening exercise, I thought I had to remember what he was like, what the topic, what he was talking about. But after a while, like him also, what he was talking about was something different, and I caught my fascination. And as soon as that, then I found myself drifting off into thinking about what he was saying, about catching myself to come back. But like Alan, I also noticed I was nodding a lot in agreement.
Yeah.
And I thought that wasn't what you asked us to do. So I consciously told myself to kind of stop encouraging and nodding. But yeah, I was sort of drifting off of the things that caught me about what he was saying.
Sweet. It's funny, isn't it, to catch yourself doing something that you didn't know you did? Isn't it funny? I think it's funny. It isn't diagnosable. It's just funny. It's just, we got taught to listen in different ways than I'm talking about. So that's what comes up in our head. But we can be the observers of that. That's why I say nice catch. You notice something, that's it. You don't have to turn it into a diagnosis. You just caught yourself at something that has nothing to do with deepening your understanding of another human being. Yes. Who's next?
I'll go next. So I was paired up with Barry. But it was really fascinating because I went second. So initially I was still caught up in my story. And then I realized that I was that, and I was like, oh no, this is my turn to listen. Like this is quieting down and listen. So it was just really fascinating how like I'd get really caught and really be listening, but then it would get really interesting. So like the other people have said, it's like I wanted to then ask questions. And then I'd come back again. And it was just like this really, it was very fluid, but I kind of kept catching myself. So that was good. A really interesting exercise.
You're onto something. It gets better and better and better the more you catch yourself. Who's next?
I'll go next, if that's okay. I was speaking to the lovely Wendy. For me, I was at the beginning. So Wendy spoke first. So I was a bit busy to begin with. And then I went off on, oh, I wonder what I'll talk about. And then I caught that and went back. But then Wendy said something that I knew was really from her heart and really authentic, and I dropped. And it kind of opened up from that point. And then I began to really listen because she was reminiscing, and it was so spoken from the heart with such childlike curiosity. And when I heard it was from that place, that was it for me. I completely opened up, and it was wonderful, really nice.
Wow. What a great experience.
Mm.
And
but I really felt her when she went there. I felt the curiosity and the love and the childlike that she because she was talking as being as a child. It was wonderful.
Awesome. You guys are great. Anybody else?
Amara, I hope that's the right name.
Where are you? Oh, there you are. No.
Yeah, I was partnered up with Carola. I hope that's how you pronounce the name. Yeah, it was interesting to notice at some point my inner narrator commenting on what I was hearing, on whether, when something resonated or when she shared how something in the book had impacted her life personally. Like hearing the, oh, wow, or just, the narration that goes on with that. And then at some point towards the end, analyzing my own listening. And at some point thinking, oh, I feel like now I'm listening quite well, but noticing that thought and that of course is not me really being very present and listening. So it was very interesting.
That's don't you think it's amazing that we can step back and observe ourselves doing something we didn't know we did? I call it like buying a ticket to the cheap seats, getting some popcorn and watch yourself make up stuff. It's very handy. You can see the things that you do that are helpful and those that aren't. And that's all you need to do is see them. Because once you've seen them, you lose interest in the ones that don't work. Who's next?
I'll go next. So I was paired with Anne-Marie, and Anne-Marie spoke first, and she started to describe a book that she read in childhood. And as soon as she started talking about it, I was kind of flooded with my own memory of a kind of fear of reading that I had when I was a child, and how people my age were reading all these kind of certain books like the one Anne-Marie mentioned, and how I couldn't. And so I really became aware of sort of my own story or my own memory of issues I had with reading that I hadn't really kind of thought about for ages. So so that was kind of going on for me as this background thing, sort of trying to let that pass through and stay present. But also I noticed it was such a relief to just be able to listen to Anne-Marie and not have this feeling of requirement to respond in some way or something,
yeah.
just to be in the joy of listening to her talking about her relationship with her book.
I'm glad you mentioned that. It is a relief, isn't it? That you don't have to go by some script or other. Great. Who's next?
I'll go next. So it's weird what Alfie was saying. I had almost the exact opposite experience, in as much as I read a lot when I was a child. As I got older, and when you said, "Oh, talk about your favourite book," and I was thinking, I don't read properly anymore. What can I talk about? Which is why I ended up going back to a book that I've revisited as an adult, but I liked when I was a child. And also the experience of, I actually got quite insecure when I was doing the talking, because I wanted the feedback of what I was saying made sense. Do you understand what I'm saying? Am I talking rubbish? I got all that sort of insecure thinking as I was a talker. So
Yeah, again, it's not, the exercise is not a usual conversation, because it's meant to highlight how we listen. So you're not getting responses to whatever you're saying. But as we go along, and hopefully for the rest of your lives, you'll see how nourishing just listening is. Feeds the soul. Who's next?
I can go next. Hi, Mavis. I just noticed a little bits of commentary, and also, oh, this book sounds really interesting. I must make a note of what the book is, because I'm trying to, and thinking of connections to other things that I knew. So yeah, it was lots of little bits of commentary that were going on, but I was noticing them, which is, I was quite pleased I was actually noticing.
So you got a little busy about it.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Good catch. Good catch. Who's next?
Yeah, I can go next, Mavis. It's Jacqueline. So at first it took me a minute to settle down, because I kept thinking how pretty Chris looked. And then I was wondering, like, where's she been today, and so on. And so it took me a minute to settle. And I was really listening, and I really felt like it was so interesting what she was saying. And I felt quite relieved not to have to do anything. But what interfered was, after a few minutes, I thought, what about if Azul doesn't tell us when the 4 minutes are up? Oh, what about if I should I have looked at the time? And so my internal project manager took over and started panicking. and then I figured, well, it just means that Chris will talk for 8 minutes, so that's okay. So I just let it go then.
Isn't it funny to just notice ourselves doing that? Oh, good catch. Us human beings are a riot. Who else? Did we miss any? Anybody? Don't want to miss anybody. Want to hear everybody's story.
I'll
Hi.
go.
Oh.
Hello. I had the pleasure of speaking to Al, and at first I was a bit like Jacqueline, because I've not been in group calls for a bit. So I managed to get in, hi, how are you? And then I was thinking, oh, that's a really nice painting. And then I was remembering the last call, and I thought didn't he have some puppies, or there was something about, and I just felt like I wanted to catch up with him in about 30 seconds. And then we said, all right, it's a listening thing. And then when I described my book, thought I'd find it hard to talk for a couple of minutes. I'm quite good at going off on little tangents. So I had to be cut off. And then when I heard Al speaking, there was such a lovely, warm feeling, and it was so nice to connect, like a lovely little warm blanket. And I think I just dipped in and out because he said he was a writer. And then I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then he talked about a book, and then he reflected on something about his book, and that thought popped up in my head before he said it. And I did want to, I wanted to engage more. So I don't think I'm that good a listener, really. But it felt like a lovely, comfortable conversation. And it was lovely to speak to him.
I think you were probably a better listener than you thought you were. You were interested, and you had a warm and lovely feeling. Something good is going on there.
There is, yeah. I wish we'd have had longer to talk. Yeah.
I rest my case. You're a better listener than you thought.
Thank you.
I remember somebody, when I was doing one of these workshops, somebody said, well, what if the person isn't interesting? and so I chatted a little bit to say that interest is something you bring to something. It isn't what you get out of it. And he said, oh, I didn't know that. And it was great. It was like this simple thing that you don't want to expect other human beings to provide you with the interest. You bring it. And then everybody's interesting. Anybody else?
Okay. I was listening to Samara. Yeah, I think before I started listening, I had a little panic of thinking, oh my goodness, what book am I going to talk about? And then I just thought, well, and I even thought, should I almost like talk first to get it out of the way so I can be more present? But then I just thought, no, I'm happy to do either. So I gave her the choice and just thought, no, forget about what you're going to talk about. And then she, the book she spoke about is one I'd heard of and intended to read and hadn't. So it was just, yeah, really lovely to just hear about it and hear and just listen to her and just settle. I had a little thought flitting through of, I wish we could do this in person, you know, the listening type things. But, you know, I know that we can connect just as well on Zoom and listen just as well on Zoom. That thought did at the very beginning just floated through. I thought it would be easier to listen and feel more connected in person. And then probably once I just forgot that thought, I felt more connected to her. So it was sort of fleeting, but yeah, it was lovely.
So you just described the effortless part of this is that all you have to do to become a better listener is notice how you are listening. if you've already decided that deep, quiet listening is a good idea, then all you have to do is notice how you are listening. It's like if you notice you're distracted, the instant you notice you're distracted, you're not distracted. There's no working at it. Like, oh, I have to not be distracted. How do I not be distracted? It's like, no, you just notice you were, that's it, then you're not. Can't be that simple. It'll never work, right? Have we heard from everybody? There's the person right there we haven't heard from. He's scratching his head.
Yeah, you haven't. Evening, everybody. You haven't heard from me yet, and I'll start with an apology because I came in late. My name's Gary, and I definitely need to sharpen up on my listening, because I listened to the emails and thought it was 6:30 instead of 6 o'clock. So,
oh Lord,
apologies for that. But I've picked up on what you've been talking about so far. But obviously, I wasn't party to.
Okay. Well, we're going to do another one, and you'll be a party to that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Apologies again.
Okay. So we're going to play again. This time, I'd like you to talk about, let's see, the best vacation you ever had. And there's something I didn't tell you first before, is think about what you're going to talk about before you start talking. Otherwise, what happens is while you're listening, you're thinking about, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk about? So I forgot to tell you that. But this time, think about a vacation that you took that just stands out from all the rest of them, and talk about that. Same rules apply. Three minutes and change, and Azul will tell you that. You can talk to the same person and just notice how you're listening. Just notice. Okay?
Omar, I'm not sure if you are able to join a breakout room, because I'm not seeing the video, so he may be busy.
Sorry guys, I'm here. I'm just busy. I just got my 2 daughters and I just got in as well, so I'm just doing a lot. But I am listening. I'm loving what you guys are saying.
Okay, perfect.
Sweet. So, what did you notice that time?
Yeah, I can go. And a couple of things. One is I noticed that I really wanted to just introduce little acknowledgements that I was listening. So there was like this voice saying like, yeah, just acknowledge what Derek's saying. The occasional nod of the head didn't quite feel like enough. So I had this narrative about like engaging more. But then I also, as he was talking, I really started to feel his experience. I was really kind of there with him, really really engaged and very present. So that came and went a little bit with the do I nod, do I say something?
Mm-hmm.
But there was, as it went on, there was more and more of that feeling state and being really like connected to what he was saying.
Isn't that wonderful? It's just, and you're not doing anything. It's wonderful because of what you're not doing. You're just letting go of everything except listening to this person. What a gift. Who else? What did you notice? There are no wrong answers here, folks. Just Derek.
Yeah, I listened to John, and basically it was roughly the same thing. He set the little premise for the story, and it was all romantic and it was nice, and it was a place, the total opposite to where I've been. I went to I had to talk about a hot country. He's talking about -20s, but I was still into it and feeling it, and I wanted to jump in and ask so many questions. He's talking about things what sort of hadn't fascinated me. But I tell you what happened though, when he was talking, I had a burning question and he spoke to it straight away. He just answered and spoke about it. And I was like, wow. So I've thought of a few other things and he roughly rounded up the questions that I wanted him answered. But something else he done, he mentioned a place that I knew I'd seen on TV and I'd always looked and thought like, and I was bursting to ask him a question, say, yeah, I know it, I've seen it on TV. But I had to I think he saw me get excited and I had to just sit down and sort of relax myself and just remember I'm just listening. But I really wanted to engage with him. But over everything, I felt his story. I felt every inch of it, like I was there.
Sweet. I was hoping somebody was going to have the experience of having a question you wanted to ask and it got answered. And you didn't ask it. That's what happens with deep listening. You're right there, and something you want to know, you just wait and you'll know it. You'll hear it. And you'll hear answers that you didn't even have a question for. Sweet. Okay. All kinds of, there's little hands up there, all kinds of those.
We're British, Mavis, you know, we're very orderly.
We're in a queue.
we're in a nice queue. It makes me feel very happy to see this queue.
We've created a Zoom queue.
That's really sweet.
We're all very polite. So I was listening to Barry again, and so I noticed that I was much more settled this time. I think it's sort of because we've had a chance to sort of really settle into this now. So I noticed that I was more settled, and it was much more about listening and really sort of hearing what he was saying. And it was just a different experience. I could still every now and again, it was a bit like, I can't remember who said it earlier, or am I listening well now? That thought popped in.
Yeah.
But it would go again, and it was lovely to hear the experience that he'd been through. So yeah, much more connected this time.
Getting the hang of it. Who else?
I had a much softer feeling this time. It feels like everything's quietened down, like the whole room's quietened down and my mind's quietened down, and it was a very softer, gentler experience of my time with Chris.
You're getting the hang of it too.
Yeah, I also felt a lot more settled this time. And it was really lovely listening to the story of Carolla's vacation. I felt like I was there, like I was able to just picture it. And I did have at some point this thought come through my mind, just being curious about whether picturing and imagining that takes you out of the listening space at all. So that is something I'm curious about. But yeah, it just felt really lovely to almost watch it like a movie, just really feel like you're seeing it and you're there, and the atmosphere and the feeling behind it.
You joined them on their vacation.
Yeah.
Nice, huh? No, that doesn't, that's the point. Meet someone where they're at. Who's next?
Hi, Mavis. Yeah, I was listening to Emma again, and similar experience to the first time around, in that I instantly felt myself judging when she mentioned a skiing holiday, and that's purely because I think I've never been skiing myself. And so I'd noticed myself thinking that straight away, and then I slipped back in, settled and slipped back in, and she really has a lovely way of painting a picture with her story, and I could feel the love for her family. It was a family holiday for her parents, her children. It was beautiful. Yeah, really beautiful.
Nice. Good catch.
Alfie?
Hi, yeah, I noticed a real difference this time as well. Like, I felt my interest was much stronger, and yeah, just felt like the connection was kind of slightly different, as if Anne-Marie had more passion or personal connection to what she was talking about, and somehow that made the listening connection kind of, well, yeah, I'm not sure if that, what came first, my listening or her kind of ease of sharing a passion of something. And yeah, so I definitely noticed something was different, or there was something was more alive there that was maybe slightly more brittle before with talking about the books.
I can guarantee you that if you weren't listening, you wouldn't have felt her passion. Not because it wasn't there. So bravo. Next.
Hey guys.
No.
Wait, ladies first.
Okay, thank you, Omar. Yes, so when I was talking to Alfie, again, I found the interest level going up, and I felt a lot more relaxed this time round. And I was just fascinated with Alfie's story, because she was talking about how she went to Vancouver Island, and I found myself thinking, oh, did she go to Salt Spring Island, where Sydney Banks used to talk? And she, as I was having that thought, she said, and I went to Salt Spring Island as well. So, and it was a long time before she knew anything about the three principles or anything. So I found that as a fascinating bit of maybe universal mind at work, who knows?
Isn't it interesting how several of you have talked about you settled down more? Yeah. That you just relaxed and got entered into someone else's world. Very nice. Anyone else?
Hey.
Hey, hey, hey.
Ladies first.
No, you go first. Go on, that's fine.
Nah, ladies first. I can't do it. Ladies first.
Okay. The difference this time was that I was speaking second, and I found it was good that we'd made a decision about what we were going to talk about, because I found myself, as I was listening to Jacqueline, thinking, oh yeah, no, I had a holiday that was a bit like, oh, I could talk about that one instead. And so I was having, because there was things she was bringing out, and I thought, oh yeah, no, I understand that, I had that experience. So that was interesting, but I didn't. I stuck with my original. Thing, but,
so you heard yourself. Distracting yourself with your own decisions, but you still stayed with it.
Yeah. Well, I was annoyed with myself because I wanted to listen, but I was just
I'll be back shortly. I have to figure out something. Sweet. Are you going to wait for every lady, or you want to talk now?
That
There's
was
a lot
my
of
next
ladies
plan.
here.
That was my next plan. Hey guys. So obviously from when you mentioned holidays, I was in my head, because I ain't been on holiday. I've only been on one since like when I was 8. And I was in my head because I was thinking, I don't know nothing about holidays. And then obviously I was speaking to Gary, and me and Gary have a lot of conversations, so I'm used to conversations with Gary. So when it came to listening, it's like, oh yeah, I can't say that, or I can't. And then I found myself, I thought I was gonna be jealous and envious, but I found myself imagining and creating what he was saying and feeling it, and just feeling that holiday, and just because I don't know what it looks like, I just create what it looks like. And the way he's describing it and smiling at the same time, I'm creating this feeling like, wow, all right, I'm going to put that one on my list to go. And it just brought up a memory for me of when I did go on holiday when I was 8. And that kind of, as I was explaining, I felt a bit emotional, but it was like, wow, like I have been on holiday, and yeah, do you know what I mean? So it was a kind of a roller coaster, but it was beautiful to listen and create and just go there without going there, just off of what he was saying.
Was that new for you?
Yeah, because before I think that I wouldn't do well, or I think that I would be jealous, or because I haven't been there before, and I think I would be jealous. So yeah, it was new. It was actually new because I didn't know I would feel that way and create that feeling off of what he was saying, because I already judged it to be something else. But as soon as Gary started talking, it's just like, all right, well, like holiday and like family and this and that, and those jokes where I was laughing, and yeah, it was just all beautiful, man.
So isn't that interesting that without even knowing it, you decided not to be jealous?
In a way, yeah. In a way. It's
cool?
crazy. I don't even feel like I made that decision. I don't even feel like I made it, but I feel like there was just no space for it.
Isn't that cool?
It's actually amazing that when I think about it, like, well, the way you're saying it now, it actually is.
Oh, that's a great story, that you just left an old reaction, just forget it, and joined your heart with someone else. That's awesome. And you didn't even work at it. Oh, yes. Who's next? Yes.
Can I share something? Okay, one experience that I had listening was that I had a meeting with somebody, a person, and we had to talk about working together, and clearly from second one, we were not in the same page. Like I was listening to this other person sharing the way he was seeing life, and was so different, and I started judging and analyzing and seeing everything that was different between us. And then I remember how to listen. So I relaxed a little bit, and I kept listening, and he was talking and blah, 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 blah about his own business. And then at some point I had the curiosity showed up. So I asked him, oh, how did you start your business? And then he relaxed and he started telling me a story. And in one split second, we connected. I mean, it wasn't the person to be working together, but there was a connection heart to heart, just by following that curiosity, that question. And for me, it was amazing because at first, as soon as we started talking, I was for real counting the seconds to end up the conversation. And then after that question, and after he started sharing that way, we kept talking for 45 minutes more. And it was a pleasure, actually. And the sensation I had was that actually listening is like going to visit a museum, and you go and you see everything, and they tell you stories, and from that perspective of just realizing what is there, just getting to know somebody without me thinking about anything or analyzing or so. And that happens to me when I watch a TV show. I don't know if you have seen This Is Us, but I'm kind of being a fan of it. Yeah. Okay. You have to see it. You have to watch it, maybe. So when I watch that show, I'm just having a wonderful time, just taking everything in, all the stories, all the characters. I'm not analyzing, I'm not judging them, I'm not comparing them to my own life. I'm just like listening to music. And I think that's, at least for me, the way of understanding listening when I'm with the client, like to really be there, amazed of the world that they are showing to me. And that's the best way. And one thing I remember is that once I was in a coaching session with one client, and she's a beautiful lady. She's 85, and she draws and she paints, and she was telling me about something that was happening to her. And I was really listening, and one crazy thought was coming to me. Something about a scene of the movie Finding Nemo. Have you seen Finding Nemo from Pixar, Disney? And in my head, I was like, why am I going to tell her something about the Disney movie? Like, no way. But then the thought kept coming, So at some point, I said something about it. It was exactly what she needed. And I think I was able to be open to that because I was really listening to her, and also because I was listening to me. Like when I left the judgment of myself, and if it was correct or not correct, then I was able to show up and connect with her. I mean, for me, listening, it's absolutely important, but the best part of it was that I realized that every time I was listening to myself, I was analyzing me, checking if it was correct or not correct, judging me. But listening deeply to myself means just be there with me, receiving everything. And that's really, that's huge for me. That's what I wanted to share.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything to add to this?
Can I just add something real quick?
Sure.
Just about one night, right? A random night where I went out raving, right? And I just heard it now. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, but I just heard it from the lady that spoke. And yeah, I went out raving with a couple of mates, and I was a bit tipsy, and my mates were tipsy, and we see this other guy, and he's hysterical, and this couple's trying to hold him, and he just hysterical, right? So I'm with two other guys, and one of the guys is like, let's go, let's leave, this is crazy. And my other friend, he felt what I felt, because at that time I felt, for some reason, my heart said, go over there. So I went over there, and one of my mates followed me. And we're trying to console this guy, and he's just erratic, and he's saying he doesn't want to live anymore, and he's had enough of life. And we stayed with him for about 20 minutes. And after those 20 minutes, I kind of found out that his son died, and he was only like 18, 19, and he just couldn't handle that. And from the beginning, that for the first 20 minutes, I was thinking what to do, what can help him, what can I say to help him. And what I didn't realize is that I stopped doing that and I just listened. And when I listened and stopped thinking what to do, it came apparent to me that he feels that his thoughts are not normal. So again, it came apparent to me to just let him know that his thoughts are normal, and that's it. That's all I could say to him. There was nothing else that I could say, because I don't know that experience, and do you know what I mean? And all that thinking was getting involved. And when it dropped, and I just told him his thoughts are normal, and that settled in for him, he began to calm down. Like he fully began to calm down, and then we was talking proper, and we exchanged details and stuff. And since that day, we've been in contact, and he's doing much better. And I just realized it now, is that it's only because I listened to him and to myself, because once my thinking was just rolling, everything I picked from there wasn't working. And then because it weren't working, I'm beating myself up for it. And when I stopped doing that and listened to myself and him, the answer just came. And to be honest, I don't know where that came from, but I understand now that I listened to him and to myself. That's how the answer came.
You're absolutely right. That's just.
I appreciate you guys, man. This group's great, and I'm a big fan of Mavis. I need a T-shirt, a Mavis T-shirt.
Oh no. You don't want that. That's a great story. That's exactly what happens. That just what you need comes to you when you get out of the way. Just get all that noise out of the way. Listen, and what you need comes to you. We are wired to have insight, to have thoughts that come to us, not from our brain. They come to us.
I'm at teeth, you know. No.
I know you're saying something really important, but I can't understand it. Try me again. Bill?
I think he was chatting to his family, Mavis, and he was just forgot he wasn't on mute.
Oh, okay. Explains that. We're going to try another one, but I want to make sure that everybody has said what they'd like to say.
I'd just like to say I've just had a big insight after listening to Omar, because I thought, after having a very hectic day and quite a tense day, and being in meetings and not agreeing with everything that was said, I thought I'd sort of won the lottery when I was starting to talking to Omar, because that's just a gimme for me. I instantly, after having a real shitty day, I instantly fell out of all my thinking, both when I was talking first and then when I was listening, because who wouldn't want to listen to Omar? So I immediately dropped out of all that thinking. And it was lovely to hear him talk about his holiday in Jamaica, and it was the only one, and just feeling connected with him as I always do. But then I suddenly, what was bigger for me, because that was easy and that was natural, but what was bigger when I reflected back on my day and just how different it can be when it's so easy with some people because you're connected to them instantly. And yet I've just gone through a day where I thought I was disagreeing with people, and it was just literally what we talked about. I wasn't listening primarily to myself first, and then chilling out and letting my mind settle and listening to them. And what a big contrast that was, to go from a day like that to that lesson, which was really, really helpful.
Perfect timing, huh? Great. Anyone else? Okay.
We are already on time, so I'm not sure I could stay here forever because I enjoyed it so much, but I don't know if the rest has something else to do. If you want to give us homework, we will be meeting next week.
I do want to give you homework. instead of doing one more than because of the time, I could do this all day long, but I realize you have a life. So I would like you to, this is going to be really grueling. You're going to have to stay up late at night and just work on it and work on it. You don't believe that, do you? Just listen to anybody that you're around. Just listen and see what happens. And have a wonderful time at it. And you will have stories when we get together again that will inspire all of us. So you're going to spread a positive pandemic of listening. Okay? It's wonderful to hang out with you people. You're just awesome. You made my day. So we'll
Likewise, Mavis, it was amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And we ain't done yet. So work really hard.
I just got a shiver thinking of the ripple effect of 18 people on this call listening for a week. Yeah. Amazing.
And it will change every interaction you have because you are 50% of every interaction you have. So it has to change 50%. And all you got to do is listen. So have at it. And we'll see you next week.